Folks, to another edition of jbassers Exposed Vet Productions on this beautiful fourth day of December 2025. The year's about gone, and got my co-host today, Mr. Ray Cobb. How you doing, Ray?
Great. Trying to stay warm down here in Tennessee. It's cold.
It's cold here too, buddy. I tell you, I've been coating it all day long. But I want to tell all the veterans now, the next check you get, Uncle Sugar's going to give you a little bit of a raise. It ain't a whole big raise, unless you're a Medal of Honor winner and you get the Hell H's raise. But
Yeah, I saw
today,
that.
yeah, well, I need to catch us up with the manufactured economy because it's run off and leaving our little backsides. Anyhow, today we got Bethany Spangenberg. She's the owner of Valor for Vet. She is an accredited appeals agent, plus she's a former VA C&P examiner, and she doesn't practice VA appeals right now, but she might change that eventually. Anyhow, we're going to discuss secondaries and aggravation, and I want to turn it over to Bethany.
I saw that Medal of Honor recipient. That's a big raise. Oh my goodness.
Well, then they should have got one. They needed one for a long time. I mean, I don't think they got enough myself. The guys deserve more than what they got.
Was it like 61,000 or something wild like that?
It's like 5,800 a month.
Yeah, it's I'm glad to see it. I was excited to see that come through. But thank you
Very
for
similar to
having
age
me.
attendance.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Thank you for having me. Tonight we're going to talk about secondary and aggravation opinions. We have been busy running around um, trying to keep our heads on our shoulders with all the craziness the VA puts out and some of their denials, and we'll talk about those cases as well tonight.
Mhm.
Um, I want to start with a quick overview of a little bit about what we talked about the last time, only because I want to make sure that let's see if I can get it to move here. Not leaving them hanging too dry here. But so for tonight, what we're going to talk about is just a quick overview of the medical opinions and what they are and what role they play. If you want to watch the full episode, there's a link there for the full episode. You can scan the QR code, and that's our last 1 hour long video session that we did. And it'll give you the in depth details for just about a medical opinion in general. We're also going to talk about secondary conditions, aggravated conditions, and how to service connect those. I'm going to give you a link to one of our helpful tools for veterans seeking secondary and aggravation service connections, and then we're going to talk about cases. So I always like to talk about cases, but I talk too much and we don't always get to them. So I'm really going to try to leave some time for those cases for us to talk about them tonight. And I'll sit down so I don't continue to sway. All right. So, a medical opinion for VA disability is a written professional opinion by a qualified healthcare provider that addresses whether a veteran's current medical condition is related to an in-service event, injury, illness, or another service-connected condition. An independent medical opinion is a medical opinion for VA disability claims that is written by a non-VA qualified healthcare provider that addresses whether a veteran's current medical condition is related to an in-service event, illness, or injury, or another service-connected condition. Now, I bring these up because I want you to understand there's a lot of terms that are referenced when we talk about IMOs, nexus letters, medical opinions, and we use them interchangeably. So I think it's important that when veterans see these words, they need to understand that we are talking about the same thing. Okay? The purpose of the medical opinion is to confirm or rule out whether a medical condition is related to military service or to another related condition. Medical opinions are performed by both VA, C&P examiners, compensation and pension examiners. They're also done by non-VA clinicians. The nexus letter falls into step 3 of the VA process. It is designated as gathering of evidence from the VA's portion, and um, this picture comes from the VA directly. This is where they put the C&P exams. Again, here is the QR code and the link if you want to watch the full episode, get an in-depth discussion and understanding of medical opinions. All right. Anything you guys want to add before we move into secondary conditions?
No.
All right.
Mm.
So what is a secondary condition? A secondary condition is a disability that is directly due to or the result of another service-connected condition. And an example here that I'm providing is that an ankle condition can develop secondary to a veteran service connected flat foot condition. And we're going to walk through this and take a look at some clinical things so that way you understand the relationship, because this is a common claim, common secondary condition. And I think it's important for you guys to understand um, what we're looking at from the clinical side. It's important to note that secondary conditions, if they are granted, they are rated the same as direct service connections. There is no change there as far as compensation goes. So if we look at this picture of the foot here, we can see the tendons, the bone, the ankle joint, the toes, and the fat pad. So the yellow there is the fat pad. This is what a normal arch is supposed to look like. Okay.
Mhm.
So when we look at the foot and we're talking about pes planus, it is in fact the underside or the arch there that we are looking at or assessing. If we look from the back, so this would be the patient's left foot, um, the fibula, I can't really point. Let me see if I can point. There we go. This fibula right here is going to be on the outside. Okay, so we're looking at the left foot here. And what we're trying to look at from a clinical standpoint is how the ankle and foot are aligned. So when we compare a normal arch to a flat foot or pes planus, you can see that the arch is much different. Okay, we see that it's flatter, but we also see that all of these structures have changed. Okay, we can see the collapse of these bones here. These joints have opened up, and you can see that the pressure on the toe has changed as well.
Mhm.
Now, when we look at flat feet in comparison to the normal arch from the back, okay, again, this is the fibula is the outside.
Mhm.
There we go. So the fibula is the outside here. When the arch collapse, you're changing the structure of the bones and you're actually changing the stressors upon the ankle here. So this square portion that I'm outlining here is called the ankle mortise. Okay, so
Mhm.
those structures, the stressors on those structures change when you have pes planus.
Mhm.
So this picture here is giving a more realistic visual of an individual with bilateral pes planus and what they look like inside their shoe. So we can see
Mhm.
here that the arches are collapsed. Okay. On the insides here, arches are collapsed. And we can see the structural change upon the bones. It's no longer a
Mm.
square ankle anymore. Okay.
Mhm.
So when we look at the x-ray, you look at it as if you're looking at the patient when you look at x-rays. So this is still the left ankle. Again, I'm going to highlight this ankle mortise. So this is a normal ankle mortise. There's nice and healthy gap there. That's going to be your cartilage that supports the gliding of that joint and the movement between the bones. And then we compare it to an arthritic ankle mortise. So when the arch of the foot collapses and it changes the stressors upon the ankle, you can start to see the wear and tear. So you don't have that good healthy space around the ankle mortise anymore. Okay. And this is something that develops depending on the severity of the flat foot, depending on what type of treatment you get for the flat foot. And it also progresses obviously with age. So there's a lot that plays a role into the arthritis development. So you can see in these images that they depict how pes planus condition can cause ankle arthritis.
Mhm.
Any questions when we're talking about relationships for secondary conditions?
That be a secondary to a condition like diabetes?
Yes. So it's not just joints, it's also other diseases.
Mm.
Um, we can look at all kinds of diseases that cause or contribute to sleep apnea, thyroid, diabetes, PTSD. We talk about that a lot. That's a big one that we see in a lot of our veterans that they're claiming sleep apnea secondary. And I want to take a minute to talk about sleep apnea and it being a secondary condition. Statistics show that sleep changes in the active military are present. Okay. So a lot of veterans try to tie their sleep apnea direct to service because of the clinical awareness. Okay. Just in general, medicine and its awareness of sleep apnea, it did not become prominent until I would say around 2005, pushing into 2015, that time frame, it really became something to be aware of. Also involving the Department of Transportation and truck drivers and them having accidents behind the wheel when it comes to sleep apnea. So if you're a
Mm.
veteran that served during Vietnam or Gulf War and you're really trying to get it direct to service, your chances are better to get it as secondary. That is because symptoms of sleep issues are common during service, but a getting or capturing a diagnosis of sleep apnea within a reasonable time frame for those era veterans is is very unlikely. Okay, you probably did
Mhm.
not have a sleep study in 1980s. You probably did not have a sleep study in the 1990s. So it is in more successful for the veteran to look at secondary conditions when it comes to sleep apnea.
For sleep apnea, what would be one of the secondary conditions? From the diabetes or from heart or what?
So we tend to look at each case individually, obviously, but we like to stack them on. So if there's a veteran that has PTSD and tinnitus and diabetes, we're going to take all three of those elements and put that into a nexus letter that may have caused, or most at least as likely as not cause a sleep apnea. So we're going to try to look at all the risk factors for sleep apnea development and throw them into that nexus letter. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Say, for example, if you had a spinal injury and you got a paralyzed phrenic nerve from one of your diaphragms, so your lung doesn't move up and down, on a regular basis, that would be a cause for sleep apnea right there, or at least
Don,
an
we're going to have to
aggravation of it.
do that social media trend, the whole put a finger down if you have a paralyzed diaphragm and you've developed.
Hmm.
So raise your hand on that one. But yes, absolutely. Paralyzed diaphragm, asthma,
Hmm.
COPD. There's so many things that contribute to sleep apnea. And
Hmm.
even I actually have one pulled up on my computer here. Let me look at the date on this. This is one we wrote back in September. A lot of the cases, I mean, we've been doing this for over 10 years now. We just had our 10-year anniversary at Valor for Vets. So we've been doing this for over 10 years. So a lot of the cases I talk about today are stuff that's more recent just because the VA patterns have changed and the way the VA responds and denies and all that other good stuff, it's changed. So I want something that's relevant for, listeners. But this particular case came to us in September and we were able to write a nexus saying that his sleep apnea is secondary to the service-connected condition of left total knee replacement, lumbosacral strain, bilateral hip strain. And we took those three major, actually it's four if you do bilateral hip. So we took those four major joint conditions and we said that those conditions cause the veteran to become obese. Okay. And then
Hmm.
we were able to tie it secondary through an intermediate step. So we're not talking about obesity as an intermediate step today, but the way that nexus letter um, was written is we take all the contributing factors that we know the veteran is service connected for, and we talk
Hmm.
about how those conditions contribute to the development of sleep apnea because there's not just one thing. We didn't say, I mean, medicine is not like, okay, this is the one thing that causes sleep apnea. We know that's not the case. From clinical practice, there's hundreds of things that contribute to sleep apnea. And so we really have to use a clinical thought process whenever we're writing nexus letters. And the VA examiner should be too. They shouldn't be looking at
Mhm.
one condition causing the veteran's secondary claim. They need to look at it as a collective.
Mhm. Let me speak directly to the vets real quick. Let's listen to the show. Guys, if you were in service and you gained weight in service, say you went in at 140 pounds, time you got out, you was 200 pounds. If you did that, especially back in the 80s and 90s, okay, they're going to track you because they do. And you have to prove to the VA that you gained weight in service for other conditions. So the best thing to do is get into your records, find your enlisted performance evaluations, find every one of them or several of them, there's one for each year. Turn it over in the back and read. It'll tell you exactly what your weight problem was and what your BMI was at the time of that performance evaluation. There's your dead reckoning proof that you gained weight in service.
Yes. Yeah. And
Go ahead,
from
Bethany.
a medical expert standpoint, for those cases, what we do is we talk about, you know, obviously we look at everything that particular veteran has, but for a case
Mhm,
like that, we're going to say clinically their symptoms are consistent with a sleep apnea condition that started in service because the strongest risk factor is weight gain, and they gained weight in
mhm,
service, and they were symptomatic
mhm,
in service. And so,
mhm,
if their story is clinically consistent with their weight gain causing their sleep apnea in service, then we will tie it direct.
mhm,
It's only those where it's like, oh well, I had a normal weight when I got out, and then I still had these sleeping issues, and then for some reason these sleep issues were so bad, but you didn't get a diagnosis until 30 years later. We gotta look
mhm,
at what was present at the time of diagnosis for those cases.
mhm. But usually this information is on the second page of that form. And I've seen so many times to where they'll top sheet the form and give the information on the first page. Don't even look at the second page, and that's where all the gravy is on your biscuits. But they don't find the
Yeah.
gravy. They just find the stuff in front, which is more or less what kind of sailor you were and things like that. It didn't go into detail. The back page goes into detail. Not just that, it also tells what job you did. And I've won so many asbestos claims doing this for people.
The other thing I wanna mention while we're on secondary cases is, um, we get some of them, we don't get a lot of them, and I think mainly it's because veterans don't understand what has happened or what how they can service connect this. But you can get secondary conditions, um, if you would fall or get injured because of another service-connected condition. So recently,
Hmm.
I talked to a veteran who, during service, they had a really bad right ankle condition and they almost lost their leg. So they had 3 surgeries due to infection in service. And now they currently, he's 62. He's currently having a lot of vascular issues, a lot of muscle wasting in that right leg. Well, just in July, he fell because his right leg was no good and he broke his left leg. And all
Hmm.
throughout his records, you see these chronic issues with his right leg. And then when he presents to the ER, his story is, yeah, I tripped because my right leg was giving me issues and it caused me to fall. And then he was treated for this left leg fracture. Um, and I'm like, you need to file for that because you fell because your right leg causes walking issues. It's documented all throughout your health record. You are eligible for a secondary service connection for the left leg fracture. And any surgeries or any complications that come up from that left leg fracture, and that's you get a full rating for secondary conditions. So you know, we filed for it. Well, he filed for it with my recommendation, but I haven't heard anything back. But even the
Hmm.
attorneys, when we go to these conferences, the attorneys talk about file for any head injuries that occur from falls and related to service connected conditions. I mean, there's so many ways that you can service connect the other conditions, but I don't think veterans really understand if somebody falls or gets injured because of diabetic neuropathy, from vertigo, from um,
Right.
hypotensive episodes, or things like that, you can get service connected for secondary
Mm.
conditions.
Instead of having
Bethany,
people that
I've got
do.
a question for you. I had a gentleman this past week contacted me, and he has just been recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Now, in doing the research concerning Alzheimer's, what comes up is a couple of things, of course, trauma to the head, then also lack of oxygen to the brain, and then alcoholism. And to come to find out, this gentleman had a triple bypass and a lot of cartilage in his artery still today. Well, the spots that are showing up in his brain now is causing the Alzheimer's. Now, the VA doctor said because of his PTSD, for probably 2 or 3 years, he self medicated with alcohol. Now, yes,
Mm.
alcohol, long period of use of alcohol is known to cause Alzheimer's. However, I'm not for sure 2 or 3 years has the problem as much as ischemic heart disease, which he's been given 100% for. His ejection factor is down around the 30 range. And to me, that sounds like there would be more secondary to it than what the self medicating. But the self medicating was caused from his PTSD. Can you connect those? Does that line up, do you think?
Yeah, I want to tell you a story after I explain this, but yes, if the alcohol or any substance abuse was the result of self-medicating for their mental health condition, even smoking, you can get service connection for secondary conditions like Alzheimer's, or vascular dementia is another one. Um, and even if the veteran, I don't know if he's Vietnam, but if he's service connected for coronary artery disease through Agent Orange exposure and he has PTSD, then we would take that nexus and we compound both. We would say PTSD, alcohol use from PTSD, and the coronary artery disease all contributed to the Alzheimer's.
Mhm. Any heart disease now. It used not to be, but now it is.
Well, what we were talking about was trying to get him to an R1 on his disability because he no longer can. He's got to be told. His wife has to mix up his medicines and has to make
Mm.
sure he takes them and everything. I mean, uh, sometimes he doesn't even know what day of the week it is. A lot of times.
Still in a wheelchair, or is it how's his limbs? I mean, is he got function, or does he still walk, or is he
Well,
totally
he's
wheelchair bound
also
now?
he just recently in the last 6 months been given 100% for Parkinson.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Well,
yeah, he has some balance problems, and
Yeah.
so I think
The former
the next
co-host.
his next step is to try to get. He's got standard aid attendance to try to get to an R1
And
and possibly an R2.
okay, a former co-host
in
who had
my
that. Yeah, go ahead, Betsy.
In my opinion, I don't think the VA does a good job recognizing cognitive impairments related to veterans and their service connection. Yes, they have long-term care facilities at the VA. They have short-term care facilities. They even have dementia units. But when it comes to actually service connecting them, typically the dependents or the caregivers don't know what to do. The veteran's not in a mental state to where they can advocate for themselves. And um, I don't I don't think that the VA rating system in general does a great job in trying to advocate for veterans who have cognitive issues. Um,
I
so
take full
they really
advantage
need that
of it.
advocate. Yeah.
They took
Be,
full advantage of that misinformation, don't they?
yeah, and it's those that need it the most, and that's what's hard because I've
Mhm.
watched veterans with dementia who don't even know who they are, who don't even they put their right shoe on their left foot, or
Mhm.
um, they're really struggling, and I think the VA doesn't pick up on that like they should from a
Mhm.
benefit
They should
standpoint.
hurry and get that stuff done because people get those. I mean, you've got stages of this stuff. Okay, you get a certain stage, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to say it, it's a terminal disease because eventually it will get you.
Well, he told me
And
the VA doctor told him he had between 4 and no more than 8 years.
mhm,
Yeah.
that's what they do.
The
So,
story that I wanted to tell you related to the alcohol or substance abuse is when I was in the compensation and pension clinic. I felt like the environment when it comes to those with substance abuse in the CMP department was that those who used substances were doing so willfully and on their own accord.
mhm,
And so I remember a veteran sitting in front of me, and his wife and him both were saying that his neuropathy was the result of his alcohol abuse.
mhm,
And I just, I think, in reflecting, like I absolutely think that was possible or that was the case, but the mentality wasn't to willfully write something like that. I don't think the training was adequate. And so I really misunderstood, the purpose. I'm like, why are you here trying to get a benefit for something that you're willfully doing? And so, I, and that's hindsight. Here we're, 15 years out from that situation. But I distinctly remember that because it was like, I felt like that somebody was trying to cheat the system. But I don't think that even on the comp and pen examiner side that they're doing
mhm.
enough to educate on what entitlements the veteran has and really trying to let go of the stigmas associated with substance abuse in veterans.
Well, it happens, and it also leads to things like homelessness and stuff like that. You know, so it's pretty sad. And right now, if you're a vet and you're doing drugs and you're doing pills and things like that, every time you look at one, you're risking your life because nobody knows how much fentanyl and things like that have been mixed into your drugs, and it'll kill you.
There was one of the local news channels put out just last week that there is a bad batch of pills in Columbus that are laced with fentanyl, and they're
Hmm.
seeing multiple deaths from those
Hmm.
bad pills.
The kid very well did that. It killed him a couple of years ago, lived across the street. So pretty sad.
All right, I'm going to
Really
jump
bad.
into aggravation here. I told you I was going to be on a more strict timeline here so we can get to these cases
That's
today.
right. You got it.
All right, so an aggravated condition is a non-service connected disability that was made worse due to service connected condition or due to military service. Okay. Often you'll hear beyond the natural progression. So one example is a veteran's asthma condition was made worse due to their service-connected rhinitis condition, and that is clinically consistent. So we see that in the clinic that if we don't get their rhinitis under control, it can cause asthma flare-ups. And that's, if you think about it, the upper respiratory system drains into the lower respiratory system, and so a lot of those things that aggravate the upper respiratory system can drop down and make the asthma condition worse. So for aggravated conditions, the rating is based on the degree of worsening. Okay, it's not the standard direct service connection or secondary service connection. It's rated differently. It's based on, okay, your condition was here and now it's here because it was made worse, and so you get the difference of the two.
To an extent.
So for any private medical opinions or I mean even VA opinions, if you are trying to get a service connection for something that the military service aggravated. These service treatment records are required for any clinician trying to write a nexus. Okay.
Mhm.
And the reason being is because we have to determine a baseline of the medical condition before it was aggravated and the level or the degree of severity of the condition after it was aggravated. So if we don't have those service treatment records and you're trying to say, well, it was aggravated by service, we have no way of looking and seeing to be able to say, okay, well, when you started, it was X, Y, and Z. And when you got out, X, Y, and Z. Now, is it required for all of them? No, we can do it based on statements, but I still want to see those service treatment records because I have to go in there and see what your entrance examination looked like. I need to try to pull evidence from any performance reviews like you were talking about earlier. So I need to see those records in order to advocate for the veteran themselves. Another example here for aggravation is a veteran's flat foot condition. We're going to stick with flat feet today. Um, and if the flat foot condition existed prior to service, we have to show that it was made worse due to their military service. And we get a lot of these requests as well because a lot of veterans actually don't know that they have flat feet when they're going into service, which is, you would think it's strange, but they don't. Actually, a lot of patients don't realize they have flat feet. So that's not something that, that we're taught as kids, like, oh, your feet are flat, or, you just show up in the military. I'm like, oh, you have flat feet. And they're like, oh, I do. So there's different degrees of being flat footed. So here we're going to say that this flat foot condition here is the veteran upon entry. Okay. They have a mild pes planus that is asymptomatic. They're not having any pain. They're not having any symptoms of the ankle pain, foot pain, nothing. Okay. They don't have any calluses that are consistent with foot deformities or anything like that. So in this scenario, we look at the rating schedule and we see here at the beginning of service, before the condition was aggravated, it would be considered mild. Okay.
Mhm.
So that would be a 0.
Mhm.
So then let's say the veteran goes through 4 or 5 years of service, and at the end of service, this is what we're looking at. So this is clearly progressed. Okay. We're going to call this moderate pes planus that is symptomatic. Okay. He's having foot pain. So this condition would be rated at a 10%.
Mhm.
Here's the two conditions side by side. Okay, we can visually see a difference here. We can see that the arch has collapsed. Okay, we now see the archway is now impressed upon the floor. We can see some
Mhm.
calluses here that are changing. We can see the collapse of the ankle. Okay, we can see how sharp it is there compared to the other. So we
Basically,
definitely have some foot changes.
the whole bottom foot will be a callus on that because it's making full contact with the floor. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
So when we look at it, we know the veteran started as mild, the condition was aggravated, causing it to be moderate, and the veteran would be compensated at 10% because the difference is 10%. I want to talk about beyond the natural progression. Okay. So let's say this, or look at this scenario here, or this figure. If someone at the age of 18 has pes planus and they are in a sedentary occupation, they're not really on their feet, they may have very minimal progression, if any, related to their feet. Okay. If an 18-year-old goes into the Marine Corps or any type, I would say Marine Corps because my husband was in the Marine Corps. So, but if they do any type of physically demanding activities, they're up on their feet, they're walking on concrete, they're in steel toed boots, they're in work shoes that don't support their arch, you can actually have a rapid progression. Okay. So when we look at somebody who has pes planus and they're in the Marine Corps for 20 years, we're like, yeah, 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 this is definitely beyond the natural progression. You're going to age, you're going to get arthritis much quicker. And so that's really what we're trying to understand from the clinical side. So that's why when we do aggravation opinions, veterans try to give us a few pages here and there, and it's like, no, we really need the full picture because we're trying to advocate, um, the full story. We really need to understand the progression. Any questions about aggravation?
Basically, it's to the extent of aggravation. So whatever extent above the normal progression, I guess they'll pay you the difference. Is that correct?
We used to see a lot of aggravation opinions. We don't see
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, we still see them, but we're not seeing them as frequently as we used to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure
Mm-hmm.
why. I mean, that I haven't figured out a rhyme or a reason, but we're just not seeing them as much.
That coincide with the start of the AMA, in my opinion. So during legacy, you see a lot of aggravation issues, but you know, I don't know if people are just not following them or they don't understand or what, because the only place you'll see it will be in will be in the statute, and a lot of people don't read the statute. They just go trust their reps or whatever, and people and they file their claims that way. But a lot of these reps don't have no idea what aggravation is either. It's just they're just claims mills. They sit you down and write your claim out and send it in.
I think you're right about the timeline, but
Hmm.
do you know or have any idea of what about the AMA would have triggered the decrease?
Probably the forms. I haven't seen an aggravation form. Have you? I mean,
No.
the AMA's got you got to have a form, and the AMA to fill out a form.
Yeah.
And if you fill out the wrong form, they kick it back to you. You fill out the wrong form, put the wrong date on it. Well, you send it to me.
I'm gonna look at this form and
Hmm.
see what it says. Because you're right. The timeline's right. And I'm like, I mean, and to be honest, sometimes aggravation opinions may not be worth the squeeze,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, the other perspective I look at is what if that aggravated condition causes your demise?
Well, I see a lot of people that are service connected for like heart and valve issues, the structure side of the heart. And then later on, they'll develop atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease. But they won't connect it unless you're, Vietnam vet or whatever, but they'll deny the claim. But that would be a good purpose for aggravation because that's going to aggravate your valves anyways, which should be cut and dry, right? But they speak a different alphabet than we
Um,
do.
I had a veteran tell me the other day that they had an inside with the process for the regional office, and
Hmm.
they're saying that a lot of the raters that they've hired, the new raters, they
Hmm.
are typically, and I know the statistic, but to hear it come from a veteran who has an inside, it brings more value or weight behind
Hmm.
that thought process. But they're hiring younger people who don't have any education in order to basically brainwash them
Hmm.
into like their way of thinking rather than being like independent thinkers or rather than being,
They were
empathetic
brainwashed.
or yeah.
I mean, the requirement's still a 4-year degree. So if they went to college and now they're trying to work with they've already been brainwashed once. So now they're going to go in and get it again. So their brain's going to be mush by the time they get going.
Isn't that the way it was back during the Vietnam era? I mean, they went after guys that, were fresh out of high school, didn't go to college, didn't, really didn't have a lot of educational background, and they put them in the army and they brainwashed them.
Hmm.
That's the way I saw a lot of guys. They,
Hmm.
it's kind of scary to be with them because you didn't know if they understood how to fire that M16.
That's true, but with the VA situation, you only got one word, no. You know, that's why they get their employees from insurance companies. No, and heck no.
So I looked at this 526 EZ, and there's a dedicated section that discusses secondary conditions,
Mm-hmm.
but the word aggravation is
Mm-hmm.
mentioned one time and it doesn't get its own section.
Bingo.
Aggrav- The word aggravated is in there, but it doesn't get its own section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Now
that might
it's
be the
going
case.
it's going to take an older salt that's been doing this for a long time that will understand this. A lot of these new folks coming aboard, they're not going to understand this. If you come in post AMA, you're going to train on the AMA. You might
Yep.
look at some legacy stuff, and they say, "Well, we're done with legacy, yeah, yeah, blah blah blah, whatever." Right? Okay. So they need to be completely trained, especially your VSOs. Uh, like your folks down there in Tennessee, they need to understand what aggravation is.
Yeah.
And for example, right now, from what I understand, if you have an aid attendance issue, you're going to the board because they're not approving nothing.
Yes, matter of fact, one of the individuals I helped got denied his A, and they say you have to be in the bed 16
Mm-hmm.
hours a day in order to get A.
Wrong.
I've never seen that written anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
But
find interesting? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
the doctor didn't turn it in for him because he said you're not in the bed 16 hours a day, and we've been told to get A, you have to be in bed, be in the bed be bedridden for 16 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen bedridden mentioned in A. I have seen it mentioned in R2.
It's in there on this situation, but they're reading it wrong. Um, that's pathetic. Way that's a cue. And if it's in writing, it is a definite error because that's not what the regulations state. You just have to prove a need. So he's got to appeal it. So there's way to it, and it's what they're doing right now. But they're making some crazy, stupid decisions like that. Things are going to the upper level appeals, and I got a docket number yesterday, and believe it or not, I got a docket number for that. 30 minutes later, I got a docket number from the federal circuit. Two different cases in the same day at about the same time.
Really?
Mhm. Yeah,
How are they going to do that?
one's BVA and one's federal court. Different issues. Not the court, not the Veterans Court, the federal circuit,
Yeah.
U.S. District Court.
Hmm. I'll be interested to see how the federal circuit does yours. I just wonder if they'll
Yeah, me
remand it.
too. That's what I was
Mhm.
sitting here thinking. I can't wait to see that one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I got news for you. I
how,
will be going to that one.
how far out is that, do you think, John?
I don't know. I mean, it's right now with all this crap going on and things like that with the government. I'm looking at 6 to 8 months. My little self will be off the. We'll be down there riding the trolley into D.C. going to the courthouse, and I'll be sitting
I
there
wonder if
watching.
I wonder if they'd let us live stream. We'll put it on here.
I doubt they. Hmm.
It'd be neat, wouldn't it?
They
It would
probably ain't
be.
got strong enough. They probably ain't got strong enough Wi-Fi for Riverside. Hmm.
Well, I don't know if it's around your areas, but you saying that, Bethany, I've noticed recently around the Alvin C. York Hospital, there's signs up saying you cannot use any recording devices in this facility.
Hmm.
At what facility did they say that?
In the
VA,
Alvin C. York Hospital, the VA hospital.
Murfreesboro.
I I was gonna say I know the medical facilities they prevent any type of recording device, whether it's audio or video. That's all VAs. But I just wonder for something like, your hearing for the
Mm.
even with BVA. I just wonder if they would allow it.
They record
I doubt
BVA
it.
and then they transcript it. It's transcribed. But now the use of AI, you get your transcriptions and things like
You're
that pretty
right.
quick. So I mean, it's. Um, I think AI is going to be the future, anyways. I think there's going to be some folks that's actually going to lose their jobs from it because once they get it mastered, then your computer will be doing your claim, and it won't. But the only problem is, say for example, your case, Ray, they got that stupid denial for age attendance.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the rater that did that. Okay, that went to a quality review. All right, supposedly a quality reviewer is a senior specialist that is a quality person that understands almost everything. That's his job. He's a jack of all trades. He's supposed to look at that and kick it back and say, hey, that can't be right. You got to do this and that. But then it went to the signature review. So the boss signed off on it. Right, it goes through three different sets of eyeballs. It still gets denied. That tells me something else is in the works. Not.
Well, I was surprised when the Southern Regional patient advocate called me to inform me that I've won my case. And one of his statements was, well, it looks like you know your way around the VA real well.
Hmm.
I said, I know
Yep.
VA law and I'm going to try to make you follow it.
Yep. Back them into a corner. They can't. Tie their hands. So AI is the future, folks. Even CMP exams are done by AI now.
You told me that, and I about
Hmm.
mm,
Got the results back
first.
today.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
was it a positive?
Very.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh, that blows my mind. Do you care?
Mm.
Well, I don't know if I want you to share. I'd love for you to
Let's
share,
wait.
but
Let's wait till we see what happens.
oh my gosh. Okay. New topic. You're right, though. I think AI is going to do a lot, and a lot of. I worry about my children, what they're going to do with their, to be successful in their lives, because you know AI is going to take over a lot. So I
Kids
got to
play
help them
Roblox.
figure out. Yes.
That'll make them computer kids. Mom was
All right.
writing
Well, I'm
code at
gonna.
8 years old.
That's awesome.
Mm.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna try to get through this. We've got about 12 minutes left here, and I'm gonna
Okay, go ahead.
try try to get through my presentation for the first time in how many months. So I want to point out a valuable tool that is it's on our website, and you can scan the QR code. But I just kind of want to show you what we're building right now. Let me see what you can see. Okay, let me slide this over so you can see my screen. So this is a database. It's a live database for users. It's not complete, meaning this only contains data from like the last 2 years, maybe not the last 10. But what it does is if a veteran is trying to seek service connection for any condition, they can go to this page and they can type in the condition that they're trying to service connect. So because it's a big one, let's type in sleep apnea. So anytime sleep apnea has been mentioned in a Nexus opinion, it populates with all the ways that we have written sleep apnea. Okay. So you can even look at this and see that's primarily we write sleep apnea that's secondary. So you can actually filter it and say, okay, well, I just want to look at secondary conditions and sleep apnea. So you can see sleep apnea secondary to PTSD, hypothyroidism. Here we stacked one. This one's actually mental health related to sleep apnea, diabetes, and tinnitus. So this is a helpful tool if somebody's looking or trying to consider, what they are trying to um, or how they're trying to service connect, or if they have a condition that they want to consider filing for. These are different ways that we have written the opinion. So if we put knee, okay, we have a back condition secondary to a left knee. We have knee secondary to bilateral pes planus. So I just think it's a helpful tool for veterans who are like trying to brainstorm or how they want to service connect something. They can plug that in and search. So you can scan it there too if you want to pull that up on your phone. All right. Couple cases I want to talk about that we've actually done. Um, we hear a lot how congenital conditions cannot be service connected. However, we have done and been successful with congenital conditions that were aggravated by military service or aggravated by another service connected condition. So in May of this year, we had a veteran come to us asking for service connection or for us to write a nexus for their aortic valve disease with an aortic valve replacement as directly related to military service. Okay. And so we looked at the evidence that they provided. We looked through every single page of his service treatment records, and that was so valuable. And we were able to write an opinion saying that the veteran's aortic valve regurgitation was aggravated by a military service. And I kind of just want to walk you through that a little bit. And I also want you to see where we established a baseline and then we established the aggravation there. So for this veteran, we documented that the veteran's congenital bicuspid aortic valve anomaly, okay, that's the medical term. It is a congenital heart condition that existed prior to military service. The condition was unknown at the time of entry into the military in March of 1993. The veteran developed symptoms related to the congenital heart condition while on active duty. Specifically, the veteran was seen by a medical clinic on April of 1996 for complaints of heart palpitations with dizziness. It was documented that he had no prior heart problems, but that his mother had an aortic valve replaced in 1995, the year prior. He was diagnosed with palpitations with an unknown cause, and the treatment plan included consider cardiology consult. So the medical records reflect that just 5 days later, he was talking to his roommate watching a movie when he started to have pain in his right shoulder that radiated down into the right arm. He passed out for 2 to 3 minutes as by witness of his roommate. A cardiology consult was ordered 2 days later in April of 1996. A Holter monitor was completed and was normal. There's a bunch of jargon there, but it was normal. Um, he was seen as a walk-in to the medical clinic on April 19th of 1996, complaining of fluttering in his heart. The EKG was normal at the time of the visit. He was diagnosed with palpitations again, and his treatment plan included reassurance and to return if he became symptomatic, which is not clinically accurate, but whatever, that's what it documented. So 10 days later, he was seen by neurology for a workup of the syncopal episode. The neurologist documented a medical conclusion that seizures were not likely, but more suggestive of a panic disorder. He was prescribed an antidepressant, and it was documented that a neurology follow up was not required. So the neurologist gave him an antidepressant and said, go away. So the veteran wore a Holter monitor for 24 hours. That's what I was talking about earlier, and it was normal. And no further cardiology testing was conducted. However, it was documented in the treatment records that he was seen by cardiology and the workup was documented as unrevealing. That was at his discharge examination. No medical records from a cardiologist are appreciated in the service treatment records. An echocardiogram, also known as a heart ultrasound, was not performed, even though it was clinically indicated and medically necessary to diagnose the veteran's symptomatic congenital heart condition. On October 2nd, 1996, it was documented at his discharge examination that the veteran had episodes of palpitations and the workup was negative. At the time of discharge, with incomplete cardiology workup, the veteran was left with the belief that his cardiac palpitations were the result of a mental health disorder, and he was discharged a few months later. After service, the veteran continued to have palpitations and he sought treatment by the VA. The VA diagnosed him with depression. He was prescribed antidepressants again. This diagnosis reinforced his belief that his cardiac palpitations were the result of a mental health disorder. In 2009, at the age of 39, the veteran began experience decreased tolerance for physical activity. A cardiology consult was completed for the first time. An echocardiogram showed he had a congenital bicuspid aortic valve with severe aortic valve regurgitation and an enlarged left ventricle. So that was 2009. Okay. And I wrote this nexus, or we wrote this nexus in 2025. Okay. So throughout those, 15 years, he went on to have a heart valve replaced, and he's still continuing to have issues. He's on blood thinners.
Mhm.
He's all these other complications from this. And so, in our opinion, what we wrote was that the veteran's congenital bicuspid aortic valve was aggravated beyond the natural progression as a result of military service. Based on the timeline of events, the medical records indicated that the veteran's heart function was normal despite the presence of the congenital bicuspid aortic valve. The congenital bicuspid aortic valve progressed into severe valve disease as a result of military service. So we've established where it started, we've established where it's at now. And we go on to talk about the care. And I specifically quoted medical literature from 1995, which is when the veteran was experiencing all this. And it's important to do that. So then that way the VA knows that you're not talking about 2025 medicine, you're talking about 1995 medicine. So, because the proper care was not completed while the veteran was on active duty, the veteran did not receive an accurate diagnosis, allowing his congenital condition to progress into significant cardiac disease with complications. During this time, his symptoms were incorrectly believed to be caused by a mental health disorder, which further delayed appropriate medical treatment. So he, within a matter of days after we wrote this Nexus letter, he was service connected for his heart valve and his heart troubles, in which we love that because when we look at it, when we put ourselves in this veteran's shoes, he really has gone through a lot mentally, physically, this belief that he, this was all in his head. And so when he found out that he really had a physical problem that was significant at 39, what did he do all these years? You reflect back, and this whole time he should have been properly diagnosed and was not. So that's the aggravation case I wanted to talk about.
Mm. Did he get his depression stuff service connected?
Did he get his what?
Did he get his mental health service connected?
He actually came back to us and got an excess letter for his mental health after that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
which he rightfully deserved.
good. So that's one of many, huh?
Yes, one of
One. Uh,
many opinions.
okay. Well, you got a lot of information out there. This little show was pretty good today. Didn't get rushed or anything like that.
So I'm going to pull up my last slide really quick. I know we're running out of time, but I'll pull this up because I actually meant to do this on Veterans Day and I ran over, and I'm about to run over again. So
You got
I
a
want
picture. You
everybody.
got a picture of Chesty Puller up there, huh?
I sure do, and that was for Veterans Day, and we're a Marine Corps
Mm-hmm.
family, and uh, he's a legend in our understanding in our household. So
Mm-hmm.
happy Veterans Day, belated.
Mm-hmm. You guys see this phone number on here? If you need an IMO, take a picture of this sucker if you're watching it on the video. Call this number up. These folks might help you out. Of course, they have to review your stuff first, but they'll do it. Well, guys, we're out of time. Bethany, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you
And
for having me.
Ray, thank you for coming on the co-hosting, buddy. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Be glad to do it. Enjoy it. I always learn something. And Bethany, I'm going to send that veteran to you to get an IMO before he goes in for his higher level of aid and attendance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a big
Sounds
feeling,
good.
Ray.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, listen, guys, we'll do this again next week. We'll have us a good topic to discuss, and we don't know what it'll be yet, but I'm pretty sure the weather will be colder, so it'll be something involving cocoa and hot coffee.
Yeah.
And with that, this will be John J. Basser on behalf of Bethany Spangenberg and Mr. Ray Cobb and J. Basser's Exposed Vet Productions, and our producer will be shutting her down for now.